Welcome back, Buccaneers fans, to another episode of Here the Cannons, presented by BucsGameday.com. My name is Caleb Skinner at CHS Knoll. I am a writer and reporter here at BucsGameday.com, along with my lead editor, River Wells, at River H. Wells on X. We truly appreciate you guys hopping in here with us tonight. The Buccaneers are 5-1. A lot of good things moving along there.
Yes, sir.
They are here in Tampa Bay, if you will. If you
We are
guys
here in
have
Tampa Bay. Yeah.
BucsGameday.com, check out a bunch of our articles and stuff we got going out over there. We truly do appreciate it. Injury updates we've got coming. A lot of ranking stuff going on as well. Tom Brady has the Buccaneers as his top team.
He does.
Stephen A. Smith, Drew Brees of all people touched on that, and a whole bunch of other stuff over there at BucsGameday.com, which is Sports Illustrated's one and only website strictly dedicated to your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. With that being said, River, let's go and hop into things, man. We've got a little recap here of what happened this past Sunday. I know you and Logan, our founder, were able to kind of go over that. A big win. Mac Jones leading the 49ers, beat up just like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are.
Yep.
And still are right now, and even more so, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But great win, gritty win. Coming out 31-20, not having to win on a game-winning drive is fantastic. Some young, unproven guys stepping up in the absence with emeka, egbuka going down, that injury. A big 3rd and 14 run by Baker Mayfield, an MVP moment, if you will, for him there late in the game. So, River, what were your takeaways from this win, and how are you feeling about Tampa Bay being 5-1?
Yeah, it's a really good, gritty win. They all are. This one came without coming at the very last moment, so I think Bucs fans and the team will be happy about that, not having to rely on Chase McLaughlin's leg at the very buzzer there. But good win. You know, this Bucs team, we'll talk more about this as the podcast goes on. It's hard to tell what's an actual problem with this Bucs team and what is due to injuries, because like you mentioned, I think 4 out of 11 offensive starters, right, currently on the field. Entire secondary was banged up. You've got Kalijah Kancey out. You had to reshuffle the secondary. It's tough, man. But they managed to win. All these guys that need to step up injury-wise. You know, the Johnson & Johnson combo, Tez Johnson, Cameron Johnson looking great. Ryan Miller, always a really studious blocker. Big contributor. Rashad White getting those touches and being able to make something out of them in the absence of Bucky Irving. And Josh Gazard taking what he has and making that happen on offense. And Baker Mayfield, of course, MVP, you know, playing at an MVP level. The defense making it happen as well. Jamel Dean got some takeaways. NFC Defensive Player of the Week. Everybody give your flowers for Jamel Dean. There's a lot of Bucs fans and pundits that didn't think he'd be sticking around for much longer, and then here he is. So he's been playing good football, but special teams remains a problem. Pass rush remains a problem. The offense is moving down the field and scoring and doing better, especially in the red zone. You know, the run game's kind of a little bit slower this year, but you've got a lot of injuries to that area in the offensive line, so it's tough to tell. I'm curious to see what this Bucs team looks like whenever they're healthy, actually, because that might be a true test of, is this kind of some of the intrinsic problems this Bucs team has, will they last throughout the year, or will they immediately get better once the personnel gets better? And will that allow Josh Gazard to do more things? Will that allow Todd Bowles to do more things offensively? It'll be interesting. So really good, gritty win, sacking Mac Jones a lot from the middle, not really from the edge. I think he had Diaby get one in there, but it's been the tale of Todd Bowles' defense. Alternate blitzers and defensive tackles manage to get the sacks, and not the guys that are paid to get the sacks on the edge. So they'll have to figure that out. But overall, really good win. Being 5-1 with this many injuries is really crucial, especially when you get into the latter half of the season where there's not a lot of great teams to play. I think after the bye week, there's only one team really to worry about in the NFC, and that's the Los Angeles Rams. So outside of that, they don't really play anybody else aside from their division. That's going to be a big game like these 49ers Lions games are going to be. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, nice, comfortable win for once, even though it might not have seemed that way for the majority of the game. Ended up being that way.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield, once again, tremendous game, still at the top of MVP boards there with Drake May, guys like Patrick Mahomes as well, after what he was able to do one day.
Yeah.
Monday night or Sunday night, excuse me. A lot of stuff. Great to see guys like Cameron Johnson get his first touchdown. Tez Johnson getting his first career touchdown, not in the preseason, obviously. So this is his first official NFL touchdown. Great storylines coming from it. Everybody's on the Bucs bandwagon now. So now it's all about keeping that praise, leave it at what it's at. Keep that noise outside of one Buc place, because as soon as you let that in, that can be a detriment to a team real quick. Bounce back to earth. You are now the hunted. Everybody's gearing for you. Even though you might not have won the Super Bowl last year.
Rat poison, as they call it.
You are now the rat poison. Yes, exactly. So that's where they're at. That's where they're at. Now teams are going to be like, okay, well, now what are the Buccaneers doing? We got to pay attention to them and be able to beat them whenever they show up on the schedule. Going to be tough. Good to see Jamel Dean back. I loved it. Jamel Dean caught it again. It was so good to see him drop back in coverage there. Kind of knew that was coming. Reddit got a sack, his first career one. Forced a fumble where if he would have seen the ball, he probably could have jumped on it as well. But man, good to see him be rewarded for everything that he's been through. Everybody calling for him on top of, taking the pay cut that went very unnoticed, but eventually everybody caught on to what was going on there, betting on himself. And he's going out there proving it, and all this hard work is paying off for him. He's staying healthy for the most part as well. So hopefully that continues for him. But there are some players that haven't been as healthy. One of them going out this week, who has kind of been Baker Mayfield's, crutch on the offensive side of the ball. Emeka Egbuka going down with a hamstring injury. Originally listed as doubtful during the game while we were there, and then ruled out much later. That could be a shot to the Bucs. Doesn't seem like it's as serious of a hamstring injury, perhaps, that Mike Evans had, or that hamstring injuries can be in that soft tissue area. And then also, if Egbuka is going to miss games, which he most likely will, at least miss one or two here, Mike Evans could be on his way back. So give us a little bit of insight into those two and what the Buccaneers wide receiver room is going to look like, with Emeka out and with Mike back, or with both of those guys out here this upcoming week.
Yeah, if both those guys are out, it's bad. It'll look exactly like what it looked like in the back half of the 49ers game. Wide receivers 4 through 8 on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers roster. That, of course, being Sterling Shepard, Tez Johnson, Ryan Miller, Cameron Johnson. But I think Mike Evans will be back this week. It seems like Todd Bowles is pretty confident in that. It seems as if they mentioned at the beginning of the year in week 2 after Mike's injury that it wasn't as bad as the last one was. So I would assume he would come back sooner than later, probably this week. And then Ian Rappaport said today, we still don't really know what happened with Emeka because MRI. That didn't end up coming out, I guess. But he was supposed to take that on Tuesday. We didn't hear anything about that. But Ian Rappaport said today that Emeka's hamstring injury does not seem to be as bad as Mike's. And then, of course, Mike's was not as bad as his last year. So figure that transitive property out the way that you could do that math-wise. So I think if he's back, he'll do a lot of good work because there are some players to look out for on this Detroit Lions defense. And if Mike Evans is on the field, one of the biggest things he can do for you is draw away other coverage, right? So get doubles, dictate where the defense is making you go. And then that frees up some other people, right? So I think that's going to be the biggest thing for them. And if Mike's back, he'll get his targets. He needs a lot to get to 1,000 yards, guys. We're in DEFCON 1 again, as we were last year. I think he needs to average about 71 yards per game from here on out to get it. Gonna be tough, but it was gonna be tough last year, and he still managed it. So expect him to get the ball. But expect him to really draw off the coverage of a lot of players as well. So that'll be interesting to see.
It'll be super beneficial to have him back. Knowing that, Godwin's not going to play at this point, knowing that Emeka is now down, and Mike being up in the air, you never really know. You also don't want to rush Mike back too soon because we've seen what happens when you rush him back from a hamstring injury too soon as well. So hopefully he is as close to 100% as possible for this game. Seems like he is going to be getting that, go ahead for it. So hopefully he is going to be as healthy as possible for this one to draw that attention off of guys as aforementioned by you that aren't necessarily as proven to be able to do so, command a double team and free up the offense to where it's not as, reliant on a run game, reliant on, big splash plays, reliant on calls, whatever it may be. So this should help the offense tremendously if Mike gets back. Hopefully, Emeka's not gone too much longer. Same with Godwin. And then you're going to be having Jalen McMillan coming around here soon, even though he is still in a neck brace from that neck sprain that happened this season. So important to note that as well. We'll continue to monitor it, but apparently he's still on track to return after the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Week 9 bye. So there's an update there on Jalen. Bryce Pat 98 coming here said it's about 78-yard pace right now with 11 games to go.
There you go. Yeah.
So there's your.
That's gonna be tough.
There's your fact checking there. Appreciate you, Bryce, on YouTube. Any of you guys that are watching on YouTube, feel free to drop any comments, any questions in there for us. We'll try to bring them up as long as they are appropriate enough on air for you guys. We truly do appreciate you tuning in. While you're here, feel free to like and subscribe as well. And then once you do subscribe, click that little bell button in the corner there. Turn on those notifications. It'll let you know every single time we are going live, whether that's here on Wednesday nights, post game or post practice that we sometimes have, especially during the off season and training camp. With that being said, River, let's keep it moving here. We'll kind of build off a topic that we were talking about earlier on here in the show, and that's the Buccaneers being the number one team in the NFC right now. With the Detroit loss to the Kansas City Chiefs over the weekend, that boosted them all the way up as well, even though they still would have had that position if Detroit would have won the game. They had that tiebreaker there with Detroit, but a pretty solid lead over everybody else that's coming along. I think, the Eagles are up there, Green Bay Packers, forget who's at 2. I think the Packers are at 2. The Seahawks.
Yeah, because the Packers are 3-1 with the tie. So that gets them up there at 2. Yeah.
So they're not only atop of the NFC right now, they're tied for the best record in all of the NFL with the Indianapolis Colts.
The Indianapolis Colts, yes.
Some can point to both teams' schedules up to this point and, knock on them a little bit for what they've been able to make it through to get to this point. But both teams, nonetheless, 5-1, doing what they need to do. Patrick Mahomes doing what he's doing, leading the Chiefs. They're kind of back in that conversation of best teams.
Oh yeah,
there's a lot of teams out there that could still make a claim to be the best team in the entire league. Do you think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are that team, or are they just on the outskirts looking in?
Man, you're putting me on the spot. This is brutal. If you're talking by advanced metrics like DVOA, EPA per play, looking into the analytics of it, I would say right now, no, they're not a top team. And again, I talked about this at the very beginning, though, how much of that is because you don't have guys like Jalen McMillan and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Bucky Irving and the right side of the line, right? Without Luke Gedeke, Charlie Heck's been unfortunately one of the worst right tackles in the league whenever he's been starting, and they've had to make up for that, right? And the defense also without the secondary for 2 weeks, you had those problems against the Seahawks, who are a high flying defense, right? And they exploited that. So yeah, there are things they need to do better. And I think they have the means to do those, and they have the gritty spirit to be able to do those. And I will say, as long as you have a guy like Baker Mayfield, who is playing quarterback at the best, I think, level in the NFL right now as a reigning MVP, that can solve a lot of different problems. And whether or not you think that Baker's play is sustainable, whether or not his his turnover luck is sustainable, he's gotten pretty lucky in that regard, but he's still taking care of the ball by himself. Outside of that, even that remains to be seen across the back half of the season. But if he can continue this play, if he can even be half as good as this, honestly, throughout the rest of the year, this Bucs team can beat anybody with a quarterback like that. And the defense is pulling their weight. But there are definitely some things they need to get better at. Bottom tier special teams team, which once push comes to shove and it counts, that might hurt you. Got to have a better pass rush. Got to be better in the red zone. There's a few things to do, but the fact that they're 5-1 with the injuries they have, things could get even better in the back half of the year because they'll play an easier schedule and they're going to have some guys healthy.
That's what it's all about. Right, it's still hard right now because we are only 6 weeks in.
Yeah,
It's really hard.
long way to go.
Everybody's dealing with injuries. You got to think about it. Bucky Irving didn't really pop off up to this point last year.
Yeah,
There's so many what ifs or things that are going to unfold that are going to be surprises that are going to either vault teams or not. Kind of like the witching hour of the whole entire season that seems to happen every single year. It's going to happen at some point. And then, you're going to start to see this happen after probably about the bye. You're going to start to see teams starting to position themselves a little bit more so on where they're going to actually be. But right now, there are a handful of teams that you could say the Buccaneers are probably pretty much aligned with. Yes, they are a contender, but
yes.
they are, scraping by with the skin of their teeth week in, week out. They have all these injuries. Are these guys coming back? Because we're still not even clear on Luka Decky.
Yeah, Gedeke and McMillan seem a little weird. McMillan, I think we've gotten mid-November as a potential timeline. And Gedeke, I mean, 4-week minimum on IR, still not activated in the 21-day practice window. We don't know about that. We just hear Todd say that he's progressing, but that they hope he can play again this season, I think was the last update we got, which is a worse thing to say than I think than before we heard that, because we thought, oh, the Lions game, right? No. So that would be big. I think Gedeke being back might be the most important player outside of egbuka, probably. That the Bucs need to have back on the field, because with Charlie Heck playing as poorly as he has, that puts a strain on your right guard who has to play next to him. It was, Cody Mock, who's now hurt, and then it was Luke Haggard, who's now hurt. So now it's gonna be maybe Elijah Klein or Michael Jordan. Who knows? At that point, we're down to like guard 4. That only helps that person. So I think Gedeke's got to come back as soon as he can, and hopefully it'll be soon, because that's going to be one of the bigger additions. Oh, yes, and of course, I mean, Bucky Irving's a big difference maker. I think when Bucky comes back, they should maybe give Rashad some more carries. Bucky took a big workload, a RB1 bell cow workload, and maybe that's not exactly the right thing for him. So I think it'd be good to maybe even out those two a little bit more. But
no, looking at his stature, that's really not the method for him to go about his game.
Yeah, and Bucky, Rashad does a lot of great things, and he has been this year, right? Pass blocking, fantastic. He's been a good runner when they ask him to. Although the Bucs run games, it's been tough to get going. He's been a good runner when they asked him to, but Bucky Irving's ability to make people miss in space is like second to none, and that's the one dimension that Rashad doesn't really bring to his game.
Right.
So once you get Irving back in that respect, that can open up so many other things for the offense.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bryce makes another great point here. Feels like every week we know nothing about this
Yeah.
game. So, yeah, that's really hard to argue with that, because it seems like, oh, well, one weekend, the Jags are beating Kansas City, and next weekend the Jags are getting, their doors blown off, or Atlanta is getting blown out by the Carolina Panthers, and then they're doing what they did last night. So, and beat the Bills. So you never know week to week in this league. That's why it is the NFL. Any given Sunday, you can lose a football game. So that's why I keep saying, as River mentioned earlier, don't drink the poison. Keep the praise all outside. Keep it outside of $1 plays. Don't let it in at all. Keep that underdog mentality, that chip on your shoulder, whatever you want to call it, there in $1, and just take it to teams every single Sunday that you play. You've got a tough schedule coming up starting on Monday Night Football with the Detroit Lions. River, big one. Some news out of there. Brian Branch, I'm pretty sure if you watch football, you keep up with the NFL, you saw the punches thrown at Juju Smith-Schuster. That has earned him probably a fine. I'm not sure what that was, but we do know that he has been suspended for the upcoming matchup against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Monday Night Football. He is going to appeal that, which I don't think is a very good move on his part, because he's not going to win. It's going to be a waste of everybody's time there, which would be, beneficial for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Obviously not for the Lions. They're losing a young, young up and coming Safety there. I mean, he's a defensive back. He can really play wherever he wants to. He's that versatile of a guy.
Great player.
And he's a great player. Not really in his character to do what he did. So it's very interesting to see that happen, all coming from Juju potentially blocking him in the back late in the game.
It wasn't potential. If you look at the film, it was very much that's what he did. Which you don't respond that way,
No.
But no, Juju did block him in the back.
Yeah. So the Bucs might have a little advantage there, along with probably about maybe 4 or 5 other Detroit Lions secondary pieces that are just going to be missing. It's brutal for them. So touch on that for us real quick, River, because there's guys like Terry Arnold. Obviously, the whole situation with Brian Branch. But tell us about some of the rest of these guys that are going to be out for the Lions and how that's going to impact them and how it can benefit the Bucs, even though they might be rolling out everybody. But, the end of the bench.
Right. Avonte Maddox has been out. He's their second corner. Terry Arnold's been out. Brian Branch is suspended. DJ Reed being on IR is really unfortunate. He's a great player they got from the Jets. So that's 3, right off rip that they're not going to have. And of course, Ennis Rakestraw, who they drafted last year, also on IR with an injury. So that's 4. That's not good. And they're going to get some guys back though, which is good for them. Of course, they have a lot of people that they can get in there. So they have a really strong defense. They create havoc is their main thing. You look at them, total turnovers 10. That's tied for, I believe, 5th in the league. It looks like that's tough. They get a lot of interceptions. They recover a lot of fumbles, and that's partially because they have strong defensive backs who aren't there anymore. So maybe that won't be as much of a problem. But man, you look at Aiden Hutchinson off that edge, man. He is brutal. He is a game wrecker. The Lions are 4th in sacks in the NFL at 19 coming into this game. To put that into perspective, the Bucs have 16, so they are definitely producing with him there. They get a lot of pressure, and with Charlie Heck out there at right tackle, Bucs fans might remember when Justin Schooley was the guy last year when they played the Lions, and that did not go well. So look for a similar unfortunate thing to happen. When we talk about the defense, I think the biggest thing that they offer on defense, the Lions, that they're really good against the deep ball, right? They've allowed a 33.3% completion rate on deep passes. That's 8th best in the NFL. And this Bucs team loves to go deep. Baker Mayfield's ADOT at the moment, average at the target's 8.9. He's 4th in the league. So Josh Guzard and the Buccaneers love to air it out. And the Detroit Lions secondary is normally very good at prohibiting that from happening. With all these secondary injuries, we'll see if that changes, but that has been a point of identity on that defense, so they're going to have to get around that.
Yeah, and you're talking about Aiden and how effective he's been, and how effective he's been how effective he was against the Bucs last year, and then as well as how effective he's been to start this season, and that's coming off of a pretty serious injury. Like an ACL injury is pretty serious, and I think he's like 3rd in the league for sacks on the year, which is pretty wild. For a guy
he was built in a lab to destroy quarterbacks.
And speaking of this defensive line, he's doing it without like some of the guys that a guy like an Alim Mitchell or Alim McNeill, excuse me, not Mitchell.
Yes, who will be back.
Who will be back and ready to go. How much is that going to open things up for a guy like an Aiden Hutchinson? That's going to test this Buccaneers offensive line pretty heavily.
He was good last year, man. He had 3.5 sacks going into week 15. He had 25 total tackles, forced a fumble. He's pretty disruptive up there. So that core 3 of Ben Bredesen at left guard, Graham Barton at center, and at right guard are gonna really have to protect Baker Mayfield at the middle from a guy like that. And with Aiden Hutchinson doing his thing, that's gonna open up that passing lane. So there's a lot to look out for this Detroit Lions defense. And then another huge thing that they do that's going to be a big problem for the Bucs. This Detroit defense, they're really, really good at limiting the run. So they're going to have to be able to run the ball on them. And with McNeill back, that's going to be tough.
Yeah, absolutely. And it would help getting Mike back for this game.
Yeah,
To be able to have like a safety blanket, K
yeah,
to still be there, but like to have an extra piece there and have that
yeah,
safety blanket
yeah,
would be huge, especially against the defense that might not be at the height that they usually are, especially when it comes to covering those guys. So being able to have Cameron Johnson, Tez, Sterling Shepard up against some of these, depth secondary pieces that the Lions have would be definitely be advantageous, excuse me, for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But flipping over on the other side of the ball, there's going to be
yep.
one. Actually, hold on. I want to address something real quick.
Go
Amongst
for
all the PFF conversation that's been going on today
it.
across the sports world, you are just not afraid to let the stats fly out here today, brother.
No, no, I'm not. They're important, and they could really help dictate the matchups. So, we'll flip over to the other side of the ball here. You mentioned with the Buccaneers defense and the Lions offense. I'll tell you a stat that's gonna worry you guys. The Detroit Lions, when it comes to scoring in the red zone, are the fourth best team in the NFL. They score in the red zone a touchdown at 74.07% clip. That's incredible. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 28th in the league at letting in touchdowns in the red zone. They do it 68.75% of the time. Those numbers are not good in conjunction. So this Lions team knows how to score extremely well once they get into the red zone / red area. Coaches call it the red area. I'm still on a mission to find out why. I haven't really figured that out yet. And the Bucs just give up red zone touchdowns at a comical rate this year. So
I think a lot of it has to do with Todd letting defenses score sometimes too. I feel
that's
like
potentially the case.
I
It's
feel like
potentially
that's
the
happened
case.
a lot more than we usually
You've
see.
got at least one against the Texans. You've got at least one against the Texans. Maybe
I
a little bit going on there in the
Yeah,
Seahawks game. The Seahawks game is the big outlier for all of these Bucs defensive stats because the Seahawks just went rampant on that Bucs defense.
yeah,
Torched them in rushing, torched them in passing, torched them in touchdowns. Just
really hard to
completely
stop that off.
bulldozed them. Yeah. So that's something to keep in mind. That could be an outlier game. And now that Jamel Dean has had a resurgence and he might have McCollum back next to him and Benjamin Morrison back in the fold, that would be very nice, wouldn't it? Then Jacob Parrish would not have to play on the outside. That would really strengthen that secondary that I thought has performed pretty well this year. But man, this Detroit offense is just brutal, man. I mean, second in points per game, seventh in yards per play. They're just they score 4 touchdowns a game. That's best in the league. So they just know how to get the ball in there. And this Tampa Bay defense has to get some pressure on Jared Goff somehow. And once this team gets into the red zone, because based on how they play and how often they're able to pick up yards, they will just find a way to keep them out of it. But this might be another high scoring game.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if it wasn't.
Yeah.
I mean, the Lions might not be like the offense of side of the ball might not be the Ben Johnson, Lions offense, but
No, but
they've still
they're
got the
uber
same guys.
talented. They're
They
so
just
talented.
they still got the same guys running offense back there, so it's not too difficult to keep that going. I mean, you think about it, Jared Goff, albeit not putting up the numbers he was last year, still leading a very good offense. Amon-Ra St. Brown,
Yeah.
other than some costly drops last game, has looked every bit of what we're used to from him.
Sonic and Knuckles in the backfield, man.
Like
Tough.
Knuckles. Then you got jamel.
That's another guy that you can pass to, Jahmyr Gibbs, and the Bucs still don't do well against that. So something to look out for. We got a good question from Richard Taraoka there. Did I say that right? If I
Yeah.
didn't, shame me in the comments section. Does Bulls rush 4 mostly in this game? Goff really good at picking up the blitz. So Todd Bowles tried to do this in the first half of last game against the 49ers. He tried to rush 4 and barely blitz, and let me tell you, that did not work. The Bucs have such a hard time getting pressure from 4. I don't know if it's because their edge rushers don't have any pass rushing moves, or if it's the way that they scheme and stunt. But Mac Jones just went ballistic on them yards wise in that first half. So Jared Goff is really good against the blitz notoriously. Taroka? Nice. That's a good try. That's a decent try.
There
We'll
you go.
watch the film. We'll get better. Thank you, Richard. Yeah, Jared's very good against the blitz. You are correct about that. A lot of really good quarterbacks are because they're able to make those hot routes and adjustments on the fly pretty quickly. And Todd Bowles, his whole defensive scheme kind of centers around I'm going to bring 5 guys at you, figure out who the 5th guy is going to be. It's typically his MO. And man, he tried to play it safe with Mac Jones to try and force him kind of to go deep, and they got killed by the 49ers on that. So I am curious to see if they end up doing that. This might be a feast or famine type thing. There's no good answer. You're between Skilla and Charybdis at that point. So we'll see what happens.
I remember rewatching the game and on the broadcast, right? And it's like, I'm watching the game, like, that's not blitzing. Like, that's not blitzing. And then they finally towards the end of the first half, I forget who was on the call, like, yeah, or maybe it was at halftime. He was like, oh yeah, Bowles only blitzed once in the first half, and I'm just like,
yeah, very strange diversion of a game plan against 49ers. And Kendrick Bourne and Mac Jones are like prime Montana and Jerry Rice carving up the field. So damn if you do, damn if you don't sort of deal. But we'll see what ends up being the game plan. I think you go back to what you've been good at and just see how that works.
Yeah, I think he had 11 in the second half, 11 blitzes in the second half. So or like 11 pressures, whatever you want to call them. The second half is what it was. It's like, that's drastic.
Yeah, and then they got to him up the middle all the time. You had Jamel Dean with that bend, that pass rushing bend. If you all saw that.
So we've had a Levante David coffee house blitz for a sack, and then we've had a Jamel Dean coming off of the boundary.
Anybody but pass rushers can get sacked. So anybody up the middle, defensive backs, safeties, nickels, corners,
and bending the corner.
Yeah, he's got bend. Jamel Dean has bend, guys. Respect him. Yeah,
he shouted out his teammate edge rushers though. So good on him for that.
Of course, but. Yeah, that's a good question. And another one from Richard. Has Voss been getting better as season goes on? I think he did do well against CMC. I think this was his best game.
Yeah,
I thought he needed that.
I thought it was by far his best game.
Yeah, he needed that against Christian McCaffrey. And the 49ers, they decided they were going to do a lot of choice routes with McCaffrey. They decided they were going to only make their game on those 3-4 yard gains and give you death by 1,000 cuts. And then, of course, they went over the top and the Bucs got a little bit too, touch and go with it. But I think Servasi Dennis kept McCaffrey in front of him and limited those yak yards. That was always going to be the biggest problem when you go up against Christian McCaffrey, is limiting those yak yards after he catches the ball. Foss did a really good job about that. So definitely had his best game. He's going to need to do the exact same thing again against Jahmyr Gibbs. So hopefully he can, because if he can't, that's going to be rough.
I was going to say, when your job is to, shadow, if you will, Christian McCaffrey all day, you're having a good day if your name's not being called. Like, that's like you're having your best game ever if your name's not getting called. Like, you don't need to be having your name called when you're playing a guy like a Christian McCaffrey and that's your job all day, because then if you are, it's probably not good. Like, it's probably not a good thing. So, and you're right. He's had it with Bijan. He's had it with Saquon. He's had it with Christian McCaffrey. And now he's going to be getting it with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. So he's going to really
have fun.
Once again, with all of these running backs that he's having to go against. Really tough. But yeah, he's played a great game. I think this one's a really fun matchup. Right now, I would say the Lions are the better team when I look at it on paper because of all the injuries, right?
They are.
Like, I feel like I do that every single week, and then every single week the Buccaneers keep proving me wrong,
and they win.
I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I still think Detroit's going to win this one, but what is Baker Mayfield going to do? What are the Bucs going to do? Who's going to show up?
You got an X factor like that, then you do. So
Ryan Miller and Devin Culp are going to go off for like a combined 320 and 3 touchdowns. Like, I don't know what's going to happen like in this game, and who knows, man. I'm really interested to see what happens. But before we go, I know we've talked a lot about offense, defense, this, that, and the other. Let's look at some player matchups. What are some key player matchups that you're looking forward to? You'd obviously mentioned one there with, having faced Jahmyr Gibbs for Voss and as well as David Montgomery. But what are some of the others that you're looking forward to in this one, River?
I love the Lions. If anyone doesn't know, I've got family from Detroit, so I'm a big Lions guy. I would say watching this team, which is so much fun. Amik Robertson, their nickel corner, who can he plays outside a lot as well. I think he plays more outside than nickel, but he's really, really stingy at the nickel position. Ball hawk, plays really hard. He had a really nice interception on a ball intended for Jamar Chase when they played the Bengals. So 2 weeks ago, if you want to look up that one. Really good reads. If Tez Johnson is your nickel wide receiver, which he might be, Amik's going to be really tough to go up against. He's very physical. He's going to try and push you off the track. The thing that I'm interested in is with Mike Evans potentially coming back, they might kick him outside to do the Evans matchup, in which case you can be a physical corner, but Mike Evans is a different ball game, right? 6'5".
Well, that might freeze up Tez. That could freeze up
exactly.
Free up Tez.
Tez, it might, or if they want to use the other Johnson, Cameron Johnson, in that role, they could too. But kind of playing with that matchup against him, I think is going to be important because I think he's been playing really, really gritty football this year, and trying to get him off some of the smaller guys. Cameron Johnson's short, but he's very built well, like stocky, so he can handle a little bit more physicality, I think. But Tez is very small, so getting a really physical corner off of him might be important, and maybe Mike Evans can help with that, so that'll be good. Pass rushers, man. Pass rushers. Jared Goff, like Richard brought up, like everyone knows, really good against the blitz, gets the ball out quick, good with his hot routes. Good with his place in the can, identifying those blitz packages and making you pay for it. You need to be able to just get pressure, and this is a good offensive line against the Lions. When the Lions are healthy, I mean, man, this Bucs team is one of the most talented teams in the league, I think, but the Lions might be
hard to stop.
Yeah, might be in that same realm, if not better. I mean, they're just loaded. So
I mean, when they're ripping off wins and the offense is flowing, it's a really tough team to stop.
It is. So I think pass rushers are going to have to get home on guys like Penei Sewell. Good luck with that. And be able to disrupt Jared Goff. And of course, we mentioned it again, but Savassi Dennis and Jahmyr Gibbs, I think, is another pretty big one. Gonna have to do a similar thing, although I think they're not gonna try and get those short gains with Jahmyr Gibbs. They're gonna try and go for the deep ball. They're gonna try and go for the big shots, the explosives with him. Unlike the 49ers right now with McCaffrey, who are trying to keep it a little bit more short gainy. This Lions offense under Dan Campbell, any Lions team under Dan Campbell is going to be go big or go home in everything they do, right? And they play that way. So they're a ton of fun to watch. They're very explosive. It's not going to be more about keeping them in front of you. That's going to be important. But, man, the guys who can do these yak yards with Gibbs and, Jameson Williams, it's just, man, they've got so much talent. So that's going to be important.
Yeah, it'll be a struggle, and as much as you've kept things in front of you, you have been susceptible to big plays. And so being an aggressive team like the Bucs are, you're going to come to situations like that. Now you've seen Bijan beat you,
Who, granted, Bijan has beaten everybody.
Yeah.
So,
he just tore up, the Bills for
he's on track. He's on track to break the NFL yards and scrimmage record in 16 games right now. So he's doing good. You can't do that thing you do where the Bucs will give up a really early, immediate touchdown on defense.
Yeah,
that's going to put you too much in the hole against this.
Yep. Not saying that Jahmyr Gibbs is anything close to a Bijan Robinson, but just saying, putting that out there into the atmosphere. But a good matchup. I'm not ready to put in a prediction. I'm assuming that you aren't either. I do think that
I know who I think's going to win. Score prediction, I don't know.
Yeah, I can't do that. I think the Lions will pull away a close one at home. I think it will kind of be like the playoff game. That like 2 years ago, where the Bucs were like right there and just couldn't surmount what the Lions were able to do early. They're late in the game, and they're going to end up dropping one, and that's fine. You head into this.
It is
rolling. I think you have the Saints the week afterwards.
Yeah, Saints week afterwards in the bye. So if you get to the bye week 6-2 with a division win, way more important.
Yeah,
Honestly, if you've got guys that are, oh, I could go this week if you want me to, but I could use a week of rest. Rest
rest.
them.
Yeah.
You need to beat the New Orleans Saints. It's a division game. It's more important. I will say, I don't think the Bucs are going to win this game, and the line's going to take it. But if the Bucs were to win this game, and I think they can. Uh, that win, that tiebreaker that you would get for further down the road would be invaluable. They've got one of the 49ers already. That's huge, right? So they got one of the Seahawks, who could be a big contender in the playoff picture if they win their division for seeding. This Lions win would be equally pretty important, I think.
Yeah.
So not a big deal at all if you lose it. You can drop it. If you win it, you're looking real nice for the back half of the
You're
year.
well in control
Your only threat in the NFC that you play to get a tiebreaker is going to be against the Rams in the back half of the season. If you are able to dispatch the Niners, Seahawks, and the Lions before your bye week, you've done so much of the heavy lifting already. So
yeah, because the two toughest teams on the back half of your schedule are both AFC opponents.
Yep, exactly. So
Perhaps. I mean, obviously the Rams are still there. So I mean, that's your biggest NFC problem, like you mentioned.
Big time. So gonna be fun. Gonna be fun. It's always a great atmosphere in Detroit. I will be there. I'm excited for that. Like I mentioned, I do have family up there, so I always like going back there and hanging out in Detroit and getting to go to one of those games. I love the fan base in Detroit. They're a fun team. I love Dan Campbell. I'm a big Lions guy. That's why I have a Amon-Ra St. Brown jersey behind me there. I can see I paralleled them. But this is a fun matchup. I always look forward with these two teams. Like they match up well. The games are often a lot of fun, and it's on Monday night. So what more could you ask for?
Yeah, it's going to be a great one. I'm excited to tune in. I'm also leaning your way. I think the Lions are just there. I think probably the Bucs will pull out this one, and that'll be it. And maybe I just need to keep taking them on my predictions over there at BucsGameday.com. So, and if you guys are watching, please be sure to head over to BucsGameday.com. Check out all of our content that we have going on over there digitally. We truly do appreciate it. If you guys are watching with us on YouTube, we greatly appreciate that as well. Be sure to like, comment, question us, like, subscribe, turn those notifications on, all the good stuff. We truly do appreciate you guys tuning in every single week, giving us some content to talk about here in the comment section and talking with each other as well. With that being said, River, I'm going to go ahead and let you turn her off for us.